Hey Wisecrack, Jared here. Today we're talking about everyone's favorite psychopath, a man who's one twirly mustache away from being a hipster, the mayor of Pee-Pee Pants City.
Gonna be Pee-Pee Pants City here real soon.
Negan. And yes, there are spoilers ahead. Despite being the latest antagonist of the show, Negan gets an inordinate amount of praise from fans. Negan is hard not to love, in part because he's just so damn charming.
I just slit my dick down your throat, and you thanked me for it.
It might not just be his undeniable charisma that makes us gravitate towards him. He is one of the most effective leaders of the post-apocalypse. But the real question is, how effective exactly? Sure, we could leave it at not very, because of course someone is going to murder or overthrow him. Why? Cause, well, this has all happened before. But I digress. Negan's cruelty is neither novel nor irrational. With a little help from philosophy and psychology, we can better understand how Negan is the perfect dictator. Welcome to this Wisecrack Edition on the Philosophy of Negan. A leader, especially a post-apocalyptic one, can spend all day putting people in their place, rooting out insurrection as it appears, and awing people with the occasional spectacle of violence. But a much more effective dictator can get people to police themselves, and Negan is a master of this craft. Negan is terrifying, as many dictators are, but what defines his terror is his seeming omnipresence. He's everywhere and always watching. In fact, the finale of Season 6 is like one giant proof of concept for this. Negan's saviors let Rick's gang believe they've somehow evaded them, with subtle reminders that they're always one step ahead of them. Negan even admits that the whole thing was orchestrated to strike fear into them.
I want you to think about what could have happened, think about what happened, and think about what can still happen.
Negan's method isn't so different from a system devised by English philosopher Jeremy Bentham for prisons, a design that would make it impossible for a prisoner to know whether or not the guards were watching him, the pre-electronic equivalent of CCTV. It was called the Panopticon, from the Greek term for all-seeing. French philosopher Michel Foucault said that Bentham's Panopticon was power reduced to its ideal form, a kind of political technology. When people are always, but maybe not, under surveillance, they internalize disciplinary power. They become their own police. Negan takes panoptic power and infuses it with his own brand of Lucille-infused terror.
Lucille, she is a stickler for the rules.
Daryl tries to escape, but soon realizes it was all a ploy. The door was left unlocked to encourage Daryl's escape, only to be surrounded by Negan when he's on the cusp of freedom.
Are we pissing our pants yet?
On one level, this is pure psychological manipulation, causing Daryl and the viewer to question reality. Is this a chance to escape, or an elaborate trap? It also inculcates in Daryl this kind of panoptic terror. Negan is always watching, whether you realize it or not, so you best stay in line.
I am everywhere.
It's for this reason that Negan is so obsessed with finding the missing guns from Alexandria.
Where are my guns?
Sure, it's part, I don't want Team Rick to use them to shoot me, but it's also to further ingrain the point. You can't hide anything from Negan.
They're all mine now.
Even saviors are constantly fearful for what Negan will find out.
You should go, someone's going to see us.
Negan's followers saying, "I am Negan," reinforces this constant surveillance.
We are all Negan.
There's no one to confide in, no one to trust, because they all have become little satellites of surveillance.
Who are you? Negan.
Even we, the viewer, have managed to internalize Negan's terror. Reeling from the loss of one of the few characters we still give a shit about, we all collectively clench our buttholes when people break the rules. Negan has achieved the goals of Bentham's Panopticon without the actual technology. He breaks people with his campaign of terror.
That wasn't so bad now, was it?
To break someone is to internalize Negan's set of rules. Bentham's Panopticon doesn't break prisoners in the same terrifying way, but the goal is the same: to make people police themselves, to behave as if someone else is watching, whether or not they actually are.
We play by their rules, we get some kind of life.
The perfect example of this is Dwight, who admits to Daryl that he too thought he would never kneel to Negan. Now he fully embodies Negan's rules, despite the fact he shows clear signs of hating him. But violence and surveillance alone don't provide the best means for controlling people. People find ways to be unseen, and even when they're being watched, don't go on performing their jobs to the best of their ability. But Negan is smarter than that. Negan is part 20th century totalitarian and also part 21st century corporate manager. He understands talent development.
Today was career day. We invested a lot so you would know who I am and what I can do.
Those brazen enough to defy him are often spared, while their friends are killed instead. Their rebellious tendencies are raw talent for Savior Inc. to develop.
I want to get to know you a little better, Carl.
He's also keenly aware of the dangers of talentless sycophants, cutting out yes men before they ruin the corporate culture. Negan knows the secret sauce of motivation, and as a result, he does more than just punish people. He rewards them. Negan's response to people may seem erratic, as if his bouts of violence are driven by his temper. But I'd like to argue that it's all very deliberate. He's developed a whole point system to incentivize work, and while consistent rewards are a great way to motivate people,
It can all be yours.
psychologists argue that there's an even better way to get people to do shit: reward them randomly. Behavioral psychologists have found that when rewards are unexpected and unscheduled, they are far more effective in promoting certain behaviors. Don't just buy a worker a cup of coffee every time he hits a deadline, or every 5th time. Make it a surprise. If you don't believe me, go play a slot machine. Random bonuses and treasures will keep you playing for hours. And this is what Negan does all the time.
Since you're doing such an awesome job, you want to have a little blast from the past with you-know-who?
There's also Carl's Stay with Negan, where it's not only physical rewards, but emotional niceties that are randomly doled out. Carl kills Negan's people and expects to die or be mutilated, but instead, Negan takes him in and commends his badassery. But not to overdo the kindness, he makes Carl take off his eye covering, makes fun of him,
That is gross as hell.
but then apologizes when it goes too far.
I didn't mean to hurt your feelings.
Negan then asks Carl to sing a song at the threat of violence,
Start singing.
and intersperses violent bat swings with compliments.
That's pretty good.
This strategy generally and unfortunately works, and if Negan seems like an abusive boyfriend, he should. This random reinforcement is also used by abusive partners to keep their victims in relationships.
You're an asshole.
I know. But the messed up thing is, you like me anyway.
Another way to understand Negan is through the lens of sweat-stained t-shirt aficionado Slavoj Žižek and his works on totalitarianism. Far from imposing on us a firm set of standards to be complied with, Žižek says, the totalitarian master suspends moral punishment. His secret injunction is, you may. This is Negan to a T. The saviors are like a well-ordered anarchy. Aside from the rules, to which Negan constantly refers, his followers are free to murder and pillage. According to the Zhizh, the totalitarian master tells us that the prohibitions which regulate social life and guarantee a minimum of decency are worthless, just a device to keep common people at bay. We, on the other hand, are free to let ourselves go, to kill, rape, plunder, but only insofar as we follow the master. Through this lens, Negan's dictatorship makes perfect sense in context of the real-world totalitarian governments. People's deepest desires are pandered to, so long as they don't conflict with the ruling establishment. Wanna steal and murder? Go to town, fuck the rules. Just don't fuck with my rules. So Negan is a pretty effective dictator. But is he an effective ruler? The problem with heavy-handed dictatorship is that it breeds problems. The kind of problems we're sure to see as Rick, Ezekiel, and maybe even Dwight rebel against Negan. It's the same problem of real-life dictatorships that are constantly threatened by assassination plots, insurrections, and so on. Maybe Negan should have brushed up on his Machiavelli, who famously said, "He who becomes master of a city accustomed to freedom and does not destroy it may expect to be destroyed by it." What do you guys think? Has Negan perfected the science of control, or is he just sowing the seeds of his own demise? Hey everyone, thanks a lot for watching. I've got our editor Ryan here again.
What's up, Wisecrack?
So last time we read some comments, you guys seemed to like it, so we're here to do it again. So Ryan, tell me what the people are saying.
First, we're going to start it off on a positive note. We got Silver Bandit on our Philosophy of Rick and Morty episode. He said, "This was honestly the most depressing video I've watched all day. Most of my life, I've been told I'm important and I matter, until I was reminded I'm a speck of dust floating on a rock in a vacuum."
Well, Silver Bandit, if it makes you feel any better in a meaningless universe, your sadness means nothing as well.
On one of our last Walking Dead videos, someone named Eames commented, "What separates us from animals and zombies? There is but one thing that does this, the ability to question." And actually, Eames wrote a whole lot more. You can freeze frame it here to read the whole thing, but that's kind of the thesis.
Yeah, I mean, these are the kind of comments that we love to see, start conversations on the channel. That sounds pretty legit to me.
Eames did generate a pretty good discussion. The first comment to Eames was by Joey, and he said, "Shut up, pussy."
In response to that, to the whole paragraph?
Yes. What do you have to say to Joey?
Yeah, thank you for contributing, Joey. Those are the kind of comments that we'll take them too.
On our South Park references video, tchristian04 said, living in a post-fact society where there's a constant war of narratives going on seems to me to be a natural symptom of postmodern philosophy. Why be concerned with facts when postmodernism undermines objective truth? Why not fight for your preferred narrative when postmodernism eliminates the meta-narrative? It's a whole lot to chew on.
I actually had this conversation with one of our writers recently, and I brought up postmodernism in the context of post-fact, and they got really offended. I think that people in academia, if you claim that postmodernism is at all, related to the whole post-fact thing, they get really defensive. They would say it's just a big bastardization of postmodernism.
On our South Park references video, Alberto Medina had the comment, Bill Kanger 099 Ether 50 City Vivizgagum off Pui Riwa Akma Halo Videos XY Bahada Hutulga Wak As Svink Gda Ad Jdf. What do you have to say about that, Jared?
Fuck yeah.
Also on the South Park references video, our old friend OT7461 says, do the philosophy of Filthy Frank. This is my 16th petition.
Okay, I've seen your comment many times. I gotta be honest, I have checked out Filthy Frank, and I think there might be something to say. So look out for that.
All right, I think that's it for now. Those were some awesome comments. Keep them coming, everybody.
But before you go, if you want to get access to exclusive content from us, then go check out our Patreon page here. You'll get access to a racy episode that we actually had to pull off of YouTube. Plus, I'm thinking about posting some rants on our Patreon page. I've got a great rant about how much I hate the movie Suicide Squad, so I'm going to post that and make it exclusive to patrons. So check it out. That's coming around the corner. And finally, if you want more Walking Dead, shoot this zombie in the head to check out our other video on the philosophy of the show. It's up to over 1 million views. I'm sure you'll love it. All right, until next time, guys. Peace.
Bye!